There are 4 stories in this video. Story 1. My parents' small business is being review bombed because I stood up to a child abuser. Hi. My parents have owned a small Chinese restaurant for the past 25 years. Recently, I spent a day working there as a waiter and a big party of 11 people came in with their children. Their children were pretty rowdy and running around on top of our benches. I politely asked the parents to calm their children down as they were causing a disturbance and could hurt themselves. The parents made a half-hearted attempt to calm them down, but the children returned to running around on the benches. Unfortunately, one of their kids fell and hit his head. The child was stunned, holding his head, and looked like he was in massive pain. Others came to his care as well as his mother, but the father told his child to get over it and to suck it up when the child started crying, all while he attempted to rush out the door. He didn't even try to look after his kid when he got hurt. I watched all of this silently until the father was pushing his kid to get out of the restaurant. At that point, I had enough and told the father he could try being more empathetic to his child. He told me to mind my own business and I continued to repeat how his child had just hurt himself and that he needed attention rather than neglect. The father just kept repeating mind your own business as his friends and family were holding him back from approaching me. I was behind the front counter the whole time. I spoke sternly and never swore. I tried to be as professional as I could while trying to make my point. Now they're review bombing my parents' restaurant and I can't help but think it was all my fault. I've tried responding as the business with context, but they keep deleting their review whenever I respond, and they keep writing new ones saying that I deleted their reviews. Is there anything I can do to prevent review bombing? I don't want my parents to suffer because of my actions. Thank you for any responses. Here is the context I replied with for their reviews. Context. This customer's child fell and hit his head. He was stunned and was holding his head. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. The father's response was to tell his child to get over it, suck it up, and to rush out of the door because he wanted to get home, all while the child was not responding to him and others were coming to his care, instead of his own parent. The mother did rush over. Our waiter asked the father to be more empathetic to his child, who had just hurt themselves, in a confrontational, but in no way physical or aggressive, manner. Yes, our waiter did become confrontational, but he was in no way the physical or aggressive to the customer. Our waiter stood behind the counter at all times and did not swear. He spoke sternly to the man asking him to be more empathetic to his child. The man had to be held back by his friends and family from approaching our waiter. The customers were also previously warned by our waiter not to let their kids run around on top of our benches as it could be dangerous. The parents made an attempt to tell them to stop, but sometime later, the children were back to playing on the benches and unfortunately hurt themselves. Story 2. I am not OP, pulled from Ada. AITA for confronting a neighbor who was rude to my son at trick or treat because of a rule I'd never heard of. I, 27F, took my 4-year-old son trick or treating on Halloween, as normal parents do. He was so adorable in his costume and his joy was infectious. We went along, house after house, lots of smiles, exclamations of how cute he was, and of course loads of candy. Then we came to one house. We rang the bell. Initially there was no answer, but I could see there were lights on in the house, so clearly people were home. Also, I heard shuffling behind the door. Clearly they were looking through the peephole to see who was there. I rang again. Then after 2 more minutes, I rang a 3rd time, and the woman opened the door with a nasty look, and before my son could even say trick or treat, she pointed to her porch light and rudely said porch light off means don't ring here and started to close the door. The look on my little boy's face was so heartbreaking, I could not let that nastiness slide. Plus, I had never heard of such a rule and told her so, and asked how she could break a little boy's heart like that. They repeated the rule and said she didn't have any candy anyway and to please leave her alone. I asked what kind of idiot doesn't make sure to have some bare minimum candy around on October 31st, like use a damn calendar. She said not everyone wants to be part of Halloween and slammed the door in my face. I comforted my poor son, explained some people are just terrible Grinches and we moved on to a few more houses but the night was ruined. It got worse. I got back home and saw my phone had insane notifications. Apparently this woman had recorded the whole interaction on her door camera and posted it to the local neighborhood Facebook group. Anyway, the backlash was so bad I had to leave the group. I'm still getting horrible DMS. Apparently the porch light rule is real. It's a way to signal you're opting out of Halloween. Who TF wants to opt out of Halloween? Even my husband won't back me up. He knew the rule, and while he's sympathetic to the social media abuse I'm getting, he said it was stupid of me to engage when she clearly didn't want to participate. I'm upset he thinks I should have let rudeness against our little boy slide. AITA for confronting this rude woman? Story 3. Parents always dump their kids with me at family events. Me, Sarah F. Others, family members. It seems quite a few people have similar stories, so here is mine and how I handled it. I was probably a bit of an at the end of it all. I never wanted to be a babysitter. But somehow, that's what I always ended up being at every family gathering. It didn't matter if I barely knew the kids or their parents, they would always find a way to dump them on me and disappear. It started when I was 14 and continued until I was in my 30s. I had moved away from my extended family when I was 5, so I didn't see them very often. But whenever there was a birthday, a wedding, or a holiday, they would invite me and my parents to join them. And that's when the trouble began. The first time it happened, I was sitting at a table with my cousin and his wife, who had just had a baby. They seemed nice enough, but as soon as they finished their food, they handed me the baby and said they were going to get some drinks. They didn't ask me if I wanted to hold him or if I knew how to take care of him. They just assumed I would be happy to do it. I wasn't. I had never held a baby before, and I had no idea what to do with him. He was tiny and fragile, and he smelled like milk and diapers. He started crying after a few minutes, and I panicked. I tried to rock him, to sing to him, to make funny faces at him. Nothing worked. He just cried louder and louder, attracting the attention of everyone in the room. I looked around for his parents, hoping they would come back and rescue me. But they were nowhere to be seen. They had left me alone with their child, without a word of explanation or apology. I felt angry and betrayed. How could they do this to me? This happened many times over the years until I had enough. The last time it happened, when I was now in my 30s, at a party and gathering with my husband's family. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Once again parents came over to introduce themselves and left their baby with me even though I clearly told them that I was uncomfortable with them doing so. But it would only be for a minute. 10 minutes pass, 30 minutes pass, as the hour mark approaches and the baby is getting very fussy. I got up from the table, carrying the baby with me, and walked towards the bar where I had last seen them. I pushed my way through the crowd of people, ignoring their stares and comments. I finally spotted them, laughing and chatting with some other relatives with their glasses of wine in hand. They looked relaxed and happy, oblivious to my plight. I marched up to them and thrust the baby into their arms. "Here," I said. "Take your kid back." They looked at me with surprise and annoyance. "What's wrong?" my sister-in-law asked. "What's wrong?" I repeated incredulously. "You left me with your baby for an hour without asking me or telling me where you were going. You expected me to babysit him while you had fun. That's what's wrong." They exchanged shocked glances. "We're sorry," her husband said. "We just wanted to catch up with everyone. We didn't think you would mind." "Well, I do mind," I said firmly. "I'm not your babysitter. I'm your sister-in-law. And I came here to enjoy myself, not to look after your kid." They mumbled some more apologies and excuses, but I didn't listen. I turned around and walked away from them, feeling proud of myself for standing up to them. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The next time I saw them, they had another baby. And they tried to do the same thing again. And so did other relatives who had kids. In multiple occasions. It became a pattern. Every time there was a family event, someone would dump their kid on me and disappear. It didn't matter if they were my aunties, uncles, cousins, or in-laws. They all seemed to think that because I was an only child, and because I didn't have kids of my own, that I would love to play nanny for them. They were wrong. I hated it. I hated being treated like a free service. I hated being ignored and taken for granted. I hated being stuck with kids who were noisy, messy, demanding, and sometimes rude. I hated missing out on the fun and the conversations that everyone else was having. I hated feeling like an outsider in my own family. So I stopped going. I stopped accepting their invitations. They didn't seem to notice or care either. They never asked me why I stopped coming. They never apologized for what they did. They never tried to make it up to me. They just moved on with their lives, without me in family party/events. And so did I. Edit. It sounded in the original post that I stopped seeing family altogether. I still see them, just never in a party/family gathering situation. And they act like nothing ever happened and life goes on. I love hanging out with the family outside of the party/gathering situation, and to be fair, the kids are great fun to be around as long as I'm not. Story 4. Entitled Mom is Mad That I Intend to Convert the Guest Room into My Office After the Birth of My Second Kid. I am currently 21 weeks pregnant with my second baby. Both my husband and I work from home full-time. We recently decided that my current office will be a great room as the nursery for the new baby. We started packing up and moving stuff around in preparation. My mom is currently visiting from out of the country and staying with us. She saw what we were doing and commented, "So you and your hubby are going to both squeeze into his small office?" I told her that's not the case. I intended to convert the guest room into my office once the second kid is old enough to attend daycare/preschool at around 18 months old. But we will put a sofa bed in there or have some Japanese futons, so in case we were to have guests, they will have a place to sleep and chill out in after I get off work. Interestingly, I have told her that plan in the past over video chat, and she thought it was a good idea back then. She claimed to have no recollection of that conversation happening and immediately proceeded to get passive-aggressive with me, saying, "Okay, fine, I won't visit again then." I had to remind her that is not happening till at least 2 years from now, and there will still be space for her to stay in when she comes to visit. Besides, when my husband and I are working during the day, we hardly spend any time in the living room or family room. She has access to all those spaces. She essentially sees our current guest room as her room and expects us to keep it that way for the foreseeable future, for the few days out of the year she is visiting us. Other than that, it will just be a vacant bedroom that no one spends any time in. She complained to my dad, who actually confirmed that I have indeed spoken to them about my plan. So now she is also embarrassed at getting called out for opposing to what she had said in the past. She just felt like she is entitled to that room in my house, even though she spends only around 1 month total out of the year visiting us. She has been giving me the silent treatment since the argument, and whenever I try to talk to her she would answer with a ton of attitude and basically told me to fuck off. Both my husband and I find her reaction ridiculous and are not ready to coddle up to her unreasonable demand just to keep her happy. Happy,